Hey guys, welcome back to Sunshine Theme Parks. We are here at Disney's Hollywood Studios for a very specific reason. This is my favorite Disney park, and for one reason alone, and it's the inclusion of Star Wars. Now, we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to Star Wars and the Disney parks and its whole role within that. But we'll start that conversation once we head over into Galaxy's Edge. On the way there, I'm going to show you guys some updates around Disney's Hollywood Studios that I haven't been around too much to be able to cover on my various social media. So real quick, over here at the former Star Wars Launch Bay location, back over here, it has since been closed for a while to be changed to the new Disney Animation building. And I'm very excited for that, honestly. Even though I am a big Star Wars fan, I do think that Star Wars Launch Bay kind of overstayed its welcome. And I think the Disney Animation building would be a much better addition to this park. So as for the construction update, not much we can see. It's all walled off. There used to be a big archway here, but that's since been torn down because the new courtyard area, I'm going to show you the concept art on the wall over here real quick. The new courtyard area will look like this. It's kind of reminiscent to the Walt Disney Studios out in California. You can even see the Walt Disney Studios sign just like the one out there in California. Just very excited to see this come to fruition soon. Very excited, and you can see a poster for this new attraction, The Magic of Disney Animation. Very, very excited. Nothing is more powerful than the imagination. And here we can see another piece of concept art for the upcoming Magic of Disney Animation attraction. Very, very cool. Alright, so now we're gonna head over to Star Tours and we'll enter Galaxy's Edge from the former Muppets Courtyard area, which is now being transformed into Monstropolis. Yes, this is a Star Wars centered video. This 100% is a Star Wars centered video, but I thought I'd sneak in some park updates in this as well. But yeah, we're gonna head over to Star Tours first. We're gonna take a ride on Star Tours, and we'll talk a little bit about Star Tours as well. It's like they're doing some type of guest interaction performance here or something.
Now that you got me all warmed up,
with Donald
here's
Duck.
how I'm gonna set a world record with this juggling hat. I'm gonna send the hat from my head down to my foot, sir. Then I'm gonna kick it from my foot back up to my noggin, because Riker, I don't think it's ever been done before. I think it would be a world record. Friends, you think it's been done before? Oh, some mixed reactions out there, Zach. Folks, I'm gonna place this pig right here on my elbow. Sick. His name is Busker. Everyone say, hi, Busker. Hi, Busker. So, Riker, if I can snatch Busker off of my elbow and kick that hat up onto my head at the same time, that's never been done before. That would be a world record. Friends, you want to see it? Yeah! Let's see if I can do it on the first try, dude. Dizzy. Whoa! All together, that's a record!
We're coming up on the Indiana Jones Epic Stuntacular over here. I'm curious to see what the future holds for this stunt show. It means a pretty good stunt show, but there is a actual Indiana Jones attraction coming soon to Animal Kingdom, replacing the beloved dinosaur ride, which I'm very sad about. But also, you know, there was a recent incident involving this stunt show where the boulder for it kind of went off course and almost went into the crowd until that cast member saved everyone. And ever since that incident, the boulder has not returned, and who knows if it will ever return. Leaves me wondering what the future will hold for this stunt show. Only time will tell. This is definitely a huge area near here that could be rethemed to something else entirely. Like, you know, I got a whole new land in this area, especially if they also take up the back lot. Bistro, don't you dare touch Star Tours, Disney, please. I'm begging. I know it is a little bit out of place not being in Galaxy's Edge and having a separation between Star Wars and then Monsters Inc. and then back to Star Wars, but please, please, please do not touch Star Tours unless you are gonna rebuild it in Galaxy's Edge. Please don't touch it. Anyways, I was thinking if one day Disney does attain the rights to Marvel for Florida away from Universal, if Universal ever decides to give up that contract, which I highly doubt they will, but just in case they do, for some reason, this whole area could be, oh my goodness, this whole area could be a Avengers campus area for Hollywood Studios, honestly. Just do not touch Star Tours, please. Please, we lost Dinosaur, we lost the great movie ride, we cannot lose Star Tours. I always love seeing this AT-AT out here. Now, if you guys remember this stage here, I'm pretty sure they don't do it anymore. I haven't seen it in a very long time. I'm pretty sure it's a defunct show now, unless they only do it during peak seasons. But they used to do a Jedi Training Academy show out here, where, you know, different dark side characters from across the Star Wars movies and even the TV shows would make appearances out here, and you know, they'll recruit children from the audience to come up and do a lightsaber battle with those different characters. However, I haven't seen them do that in a very long time. Like I said, I believe that it is no longer being done. I could be wrong on that. Please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I just haven't seen it done in a long time. And you know, I have an idea to propose Walt Disney Imagineering, but I know they don't really take outside ideas ever. But hopefully they already had this idea too that I'll talk about once we are on Batuu. But to get to Batuu, I feel like it's only appropriate to ride Star Tours so we can travel to Batuu in style. Oh my goodness, guys. I think we're about to see someone pretty important come through here. He's down here. There he is. That's Darth Vader right there. Yeah, where he's got his back turned. There he is.
Appears we have a satellite receiver here. Well, satellite receivers are not allowed in checked baggage. But I'm gonna let it slide this time because it's so cute.
I'm actually looking at that over there. One of my many skills? Yes. I totally saw that. Keep it moving.
When the automatic doors have opened, please proceed directly across the ramp into the cabin. Continue to move all the way across your aisle, filling in every available seat. Do not put on your flight glasses until instructed to do so by a crew member. One final reminder, smoking and photography are never permitted on any Star Tours flight.
Alright, just got off Star Tours. In case y'all were wondering what destination I got, it was very much sequel era focused, so it went to Jakku, and then we got a message from BB-8, and then we ended up on the Battle of Crait from The Last Jedi, and then we landed on Batuu, which is awesome because Batuu's right next door. I mean, we're not directly in Batuu once we get off the ride, which is fine. We can just pause our you know, belief for a little bit until we arrive inside Batuu. It's like, oh hey, Star Tours brought us here. But man, I love Star Tours so much. I think I might ride it a second time. Yeah. Here's the lineup to meet Darth Vader. Huge line for him. Very popular character. Got some stuff to talk about with Darth Vader a little bit later in the video once we're in Batuu. I know I keep teasing. Everything I'm going to say for this video is going to be when I'm in Batuu, and I'm not there yet. All right, well, let me ride Star Tours a few times, and then we'll get there. All right, we'll get there. Round 2.
Star Tours is pleased to announce its.
Oh my gosh, this button up is so awesome. The price isn't awesome, $70, but the button up is amazing. Later, Vader. Alright, if you were curious, this second round at Star Tours, it was the original trilogy era. So we started off with Darth Vader stopping us at the beginning, and then we escaped, went to Hoth, and then we went to the space over Geonosis with the second Death Star, and Boba Fett was attacking us. And then we ended with the Rebel fleet and Admiral Akbar. So yeah, I love that. You know, I love that they keep the timelines together with all the different scenes. I remember a time years and years ago where Star Tours, the scenes were legitimately randomized. So you had a lot of like time travel throughout the ride where you go through like the sequel trilogy, and then you can end up in the prequel trilogy, and then original trilogy, sequel trilogy type of scenario all in one ride. But now they match up the scenes with the eras, so it's all consistent. And every time you go on, it's not really much of a oh, which planet are we going to go to? It's more of a what era of the Star Wars timeline are we going to be in? And of course, what planets in that era are we going to see? Which is cool. Now, before we head into Galaxy's Edge, which is right behind here, I'm just going to give you a little peek of what's going on with Monstropolis. Of course, the former Muppets Courtyard area right behind me. It'll be quick, you know, there's not much to see from out here. All right, so here we have the construction area for the upcoming Monstropolis. A whole Monsters, Inc. themed area. We will be getting at least 2 attractions. One unannounced theater show for where Muppet Vision used to be. I say unannounced, I mean they mentioned that something will be going there, but they haven't revealed exactly what. And then all the way in the back of the land, that is currently the cast member parking area, they're building a new Monsters Inc. themed door roller coaster. It's really cool. It's gonna be all the way in the back of the land, and it's all being switched over to a Monsters Inc. theme. We can see the concept art right over here of what the area will look like, with the show taking over Muppet Vision. And then we go down the courtyard, and back here will be Monsters Inc. itself, where the roller coaster will be. And it seems like maybe there's gonna be like a little playground area. Of course, we're gonna have the Harryhausen's restaurant. There might be another restaurant over here because that's where Pizzerizzo was. I'm excited to see it. You know, I'm sad to see the Muppets go, but hopefully Muppet Vision will find its way back to the parks one day. And it's weird being sandwiched between 2 Star Wars areas. And once again, I really hope Disney doesn't pull the trigger on Star Tours, but I really do fear for Star Tours. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And now we leave Disney's Hollywood Studios and we enter a galaxy far, far away. I still remember the opening day of Galaxy's Edge. I walked through the same path for the very first time. And right around here, there's really nothing to see, honestly, but right around here I started crying because I was just overwhelmed with emotion, just finally being able to step into Galaxy's Edge for the first time. And I started tearing up, mind you, with just seeing this rock work and some trees, which is going to be a topic of discussion with this video. But here we are now on the planet of Batuu in a galaxy far, far away. Here we have the entrance to what I think is the best theme park ride ever created, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. It's sitting at a 55-minute wait right now. And I definitely will be hopping in the single rider line, which is something that was most recently introduced down over here. You miss all of the pre-show and the good stuff, and it's a weird transition into the Star Destroyer, but still worth it because you wait for like maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes at most, all the time. It's great. All right, now let's talk about the topic that I have with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So I'm kind of just freeballing this video, so just bear with me. I'm sure most of you have heard the announcement from Disney with Galaxy's Edge timeline being swapped over to reflect the original trilogy era. Only half of the land will be swapped over with that timeline. But they only announced this for Disneyland. They specifically announced it just for Disneyland. Now, they didn't say it's an exclusive to Disneyland, and they didn't say that it was not coming to Walt Disney World at all. But they did only announce it for Disneyland specifically. They didn't say both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. It was just Disneyland. And it would happen on, wow, that gonk joy is really loud. It would move away. They announced it will happen on April 29th, I believe. And if I have that date wrong, I will fix it right now on screen. But it is April 29th on when the change for Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge will happen with the timelines. Now, bear in mind that like I said, it's only half the land. It won't be the whole land. And the main area of Galaxy's Edge, I consider the main area, the Black Spire Outpost. That's where the Millennium Falcon is, Oka's Cantina, the milk stand, Dok-Ondar's, that whole area, Ronzo's Roaster, and the market area. That whole section of Galaxy's Edge will be affected with the timeline swap. We're going to the original trilogy era. They didn't say exactly what films it takes place in between, but with some context clues, and if you know the Star Wars lore, you can pretty much narrow it down to in between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, because they will be introducing Darth Vader, Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker as pretty much permanent walk-around atmosphere and meet and greet characters within the land. And with that, it can't be set after Empire Strikes Back because Han Solo would be in Carbonite, and it can't be set after Return of the Jedi because then Darth Vader would be dead. So with all those characters being there, there's only one place for it to be. It'll be in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And it can't be before A New Hope because all those characters wouldn't be together yet, because A New Hope was the first Star Wars movie. Now that I think that is a great change. It is a great change because, I love Galaxy's Edge. I really, really do. But I have to admit, it did fall flat a lot in a lot of areas. And to think the first ever major Star Wars land for a theme park ever built, and there's no Darth Vader at all, no Luke Skywalker, no Princess Leia, no Han Solo. You have the Millennium Falcon, you have Chewbacca, of course. They built this land with the promotion of their new sequel trilogy, which, this is not going to be a video discussing the sequel trilogy, but for most Star Wars fans, that trilogy did fall flat. Those characters didn't really resonate with too many of the Star Wars fans beforehand. It did resonate with a lot of the children that grew up with those characters. And I'm not one that hated the sequel trilogy. I did enjoy it. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I love every Star Wars that has come out. I do. I can accept the flaws in each and every one of them, but I still love every movie for what they are. So I do love the sequel trilogy, and I do love the sequel trilogy characters. But I do like the original trilogy and those characters more, just because those are classic Star Wars. And I really believe that if you build a Star Wars land, you have to keep it classic Star Wars. So I think the approach that they are doing with Disneyland is it's a very good idea. And it's actually perfect because it's such an easy swap to do. They did announce that they're going to be swapping over some props and adding some props to further reflect that timeline change. That TIE Fighter that we're going to see in person in just a little bit, the TIE Fighter was, Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter, but it's always been colored in the Imperial color scheme, and in the blog post they did mention that it is an artifact that Kylo Ren had from the Imperial era, so it does fit perfectly with the Imperial era timeline that they're doing, with it being Vader's ship now. It's the same ship, just an earlier in time. So that already fits in. They're gonna swap over all the First Order stuff to become the Empire. Any Resistance stuff that they talk about over in that area will be, Rebellion focused, and it's all original trilogy. However, beyond the Black Spire marketplace, all the way up to here where I am right now, where Rise of the Resistance is, will still remain as the sequel trilogy era. Now, the reason for that is because of the Rise of the Resistance. Now, they are not going to replace all of those hundreds of stormtroopers in the hangar, the Star Destroyer hangar, to be Imperial stormtroopers. They're not going to swap out the Kylo Ren animatronic to be a Darth Vader animatronic. They're not going to get rid of General Hux. They're not going to change the interior of that Star Destroyer to be an Imperial Star Destroyer rather than a First Order aesthetic. That is just an insane amount of money just to retheme the same ride, but with just slightly different No, they're not going to do that. Can you imagine the money that goes in, the time it's going to take for all of that to happen, just for a simple retheme of this character instead of that character? Really? They're not doing that. The Rise of the Resistance ride is locked in to the sequel trilogy era, and to maintain the theme for the ride itself, this whole area near the ride will remain in the sequel trilogy era. So this will still be the Resistance base out in Disneyland, and then as you go further, you travel to a different era in the timeline, and you'll see all of the original trilogy characters. Now, I did mention that Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia. Han Solo will be near the Falcon, of course. Princess Leia will be around that area, and Oga's Cantina, and around Dok-Ondar's, kind of roaming around in the droid shop, as well as Luke Skywalker. You see him walking around more near Sabi's workshop. And then Darth Vader, of course, will be in the new Imperial area, which is now the First Order area right now, before the change. And of course, they will still have the Mandalorian and other characters from post Return of the Jedi era Star Wars TV shows like Ahsoka, what's her name, Fennec Shand, and Boba Fett. They will still be meeting as well, in between like the marketplace, like around the marketplace era. That's kind of like your transition from sequel trilogy and original trilogy. That in between, you'll see those characters, because it's, those characters take place in between those two eras of the Star Wars franchise. So if you're entering at Disneyland from the other side of Star Wars land, from where I am right now, you start off original trilogy. You see the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Fennec Shand. That's like post-original trilogy characters, and then sequel trilogy at the end of the land. Now, if you go enter in from where I am over at Disneyland, you get the opposite end of that. You start off with the sequel trilogy, and then you go back in time when you see those characters, Ahsoka, the Mandalorian, and then you lead into the original trilogy era with those characters. Now, the Millennium Falcon, they didn't say specifically if they're going to change the radar dish, because all my Star Wars fans, you know that the radar dish in the Millennium Falcon right now, the rectangular one, that one was introduced for The Force Awakens because at the end of Return of the Jedi, when Lando was flying the Millennium Falcon through the inner workings of the second Death Star, they did hit something and it knocked off that radar dish, that circular radar dish, and it got replaced by the rectangular one in between, you know, the two trilogies. So that's how you differentiate between like the sequel trilogy Millennium Falcon and the original trilogy Millennium Falcon. It's the shape of the radar dish. Now, of course, they have the rectangular radar dish over here at Galaxy's Edge because it's all sequel trilogy, but I know they have to change that radar dish for Disneyland. I hope they do. I hope that's something that Walt Disney Imagineering very closely like pays attention to, and they have a plan to swap that out, because they need to. They need to have the circle radar dish. I know for most casual people it doesn't matter, but to hardcore Star Wars fans, it really does. Imagine that photo. Imagine coming into Star Wars land, seeing the Millennium Falcon, which is already an amazing thing to see, and then boom, you got that classic looking Millennium Falcon, and there's Han Solo and Chewbacca right there. And hey, maybe even Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker are around that area too if you're lucky. Imagine that photo. Imagine that experience. Yeah, it's a very good idea that Disney is swapping the timelines. Now, Rey and Chewie always walked around the Black Spire area. That's where usually you would see them, but they will not be going away. Their meet and greet at Disneyland, or their walk around atmosphere, will be only focused right here in the Resistance area, because of course this is going to be the sequel trilogy era permanently at Disneyland. So you'll still see Rey out here. You might still see Vi Moradi. You know, we don't know her fate yet, and maybe any other sequel trilogy characters they decide to introduce to the parks. Now, the big takeaway is Kylo Ren. They're not going to bring Kylo Ren and those stormtroopers to the Resistance base. You know, the storyline with Kylo Ren being all the way on the other side of the land is that he is here looking for the hidden Resistance base, which is there, a hidden Resistance base. If you have him walking around the hidden Resistance base, he's not going to be walking around and be like, oh man, where are those rebels at? Where's the Resistance at? Where are they at? Brother, they're right here. You are at the base. So they did announce that Kylo Ren will not be in Galaxy's Edge any longer over at Disneyland, but there is like a Disney Visa member lounge or something, like a meet and greet for Disney Visa card members. He will be a meet and greet, I believe, in Tomorrowland over at Disneyland, and I'm sure his stormtroopers will be there as well, because those are expensive costumes that I don't think Disney is going to be very happy to get rid of anytime soon. And now, that's most of the updates. To reflect the timeline updates, Marvel Comics is releasing brand new Star Wars comic books to kind of explain like Vader and Luke's presence on Batuu, which I really like, because it shows that Disney Imagineering is committed to keeping the theme of Galaxy's Edge. Even though they're swapping the timeline, they're maintaining that theme and being accurate to Star Wars canon, which is very important. I know it's not important to many casual visitors. They just want to come here, they just want to ride the rides, and they just want to get on with their day. Maybe take a photo with Darth Vader and be on their way, which is fine. They're going to be able to do that. But for hardcore Star Wars fans who are coming here to have a Star Wars land experience, Walt Disney Imagineering is making sure all the fine details are right, because Star Wars fans care about the fine details. But like I said, this has only been announced for Disneyland. It has not been announced for Florida. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but let's continue through the land. Let's probably hop on Rise of the Resistance real quick. I'll gather my thoughts, and we'll keep talking about Star Wars. So stay with me, guys. Don't click off the video yet. I got a lot more to talk about. All right, a lot more to show you guys. So stay tuned. Let's go get captured by the First Order real quick. And here we have Rey walking around the Resistance base, much like she will be doing at Disneyland. She's out here roaming, but she's heading back towards Black Spire Outpost, which she will not be able to do at Disneyland. Bye, Rey. Let's go check out the single rider line. All right, we're heading into the secret Resistance base hidden here on Batuu. Hopefully the First Order doesn't find us. All right, we're sneaking by. Everyone gets to go that way, but we get to go this way. Thank you. Random hallway. And Star Destroyer.
Rotation through all types of all personnel on this deck. Suspended pending prisoner transit.
Enemies of the First Order, we will soon snuff out your meager resistance. You chose the wrong side, and now you will pay. The Resistance prisoners.
You have what I want. You know the location of the secret base, and I will take it from you.
We are needed on the bridge.
Keep the prisoners here. I will return to finish this personally.
Did it work? Good. Now get a move on.
Hey, you're not authorized. Wait, those are the prisoners. We have a break in
Cover is blown. Find an alternate route. Who picked these two droids anyway?
Just follow us. Take the lift down. Hurry! No, not up! I said down!
They have neither the resources nor the courage to engage us.
You underestimate their conviction. Raise the shields.
Shields? I see no evidence.
Now!
Sound the alarm! All personnel to their stations!
The prisoners have escaped.
How brave, but ultimately hopeless. There's nowhere to run.
Personnel, abandoned ship. I repeat, abandoned ship. The destroyer's about.
There's no escape. You will tell me the location of the secret base, and then I will destroy you and the Resistance.
came in a little off target.
Lieutenant Buck here. Brett! You're alive! I should hope so. Great job, recruits. Thanks to your heroism, the location of the Resistance base is secure.
Literally the best ride Disney has ever created, ever. I love it. And I was so happy to see the main Kylo animatronic being in A mode. Perfect, thank you. I've been riding this for a couple times this last like few weeks, and every time Kylo Ren has been B mode, which is the ship, the video of his ship outside of the window out in space. Every time. And now finally I see him in A mode again. I'm glad. I love this ride. I really do. But y'all can see now that they can't just replace all of that with different characters. It changes the entire ride completely. And that's a lot of money that Disney will not and should not invest in. Anyways, A-Wing. X-Wing over here, love this photo op. Resistance X-Wing. It'd be cool when they change the timeline at Disneyland, they'll have Rey doing photo ops in front of the X-Wing. That would be really awesome. That's probably what they're gonna do, honestly. Alright, now we're gonna head further into the land where in Disneyland they'll change the timeline, and I'll talk more about some Star Wars stuff. Mostly about, will they do the same change here in Florida? I've been thinking about it for a long time, like will they, won't they? Is there a reason for them to do it? I think that yes, they will, but I'm predicting that first they're gonna see how it holds up over at Disneyland. I think it's gonna be a testing ground for Disneyland. I know when they brought over Luke Skywalker to Disneyland for a little bit during, I think it was Season of the Force recently. I think that was a test to see how many people would be interested in meeting Luke Skywalker in the park, and how, you know, how much fan engagement there would be there. And I think it tested pretty positively with, you know, them fully committing to doing this change to Galaxy's Edge now. But I'm thinking that this full-blown commitment to changing the timeline, with them doing it at Disneyland first, I think that's their testing ground to see if it's worth it to do the same thing here at Walt Disney World. Now, I know a lot of people know this as well. The whole, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Every time I do videos, you know, my train of thoughts just kind of goes all over the place, and I lose very simple words. But the whole like atmosphere, the whole vibes, and the difference between Walt Disney World and Disneyland is very different. Just overall, the theme park landscape between both coasts of the United States is very different. Now, if you guys recall, there was a test that happened. There was this droid, this roaming droid that they tested in Tomorrowland. It was a Star Wars themed droid. I don't remember the name of it, if it even had a name, but that was tested, I believe, here in Disney World. I could be wrong. It was a roaming droid that was being tested, and they just kind of let guests do whatever with the droid to see what would happen. And if you watch the video of that, my goodness, it was a disaster. You know, parents just let their kids be awful with that droid, this very expensive piece of machinery. There was kids climbing all over it, stopping in front of it, and the parents were just like basically enabling it, not doing anything about it. And, you know, guests were going up and like touching it, and it was just horrible. And that basically killed the whole roaming droid thing for Galaxy's Edge, and honestly killed the whole like roaming character and atmosphere for Galaxy's Edge. Now, when they first announced this land, they promised it with roaming characters and roaming droids kind of filling the whole space. And ever since it opened back in 2019 here at Hollywood Studios, that fell flat. We only got like the main Star Wars characters of Rey, Chewie, and Vimarati, Kylo Ren, the Stormtroopers, and that's it. We didn't get any like extra characters, just random aliens that aren't really legacy characters. They're just residents of Batuu. We didn't get any roaming droids here, and I think that's because the whole environment in Walt Disney World is very different at Disneyland, because at Disneyland currently, before they changed the timeline, they have a roaming R2-D2 over there. They had Ahsoka, they have Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and all these other characters that we don't have. We just got The Mandalorian recently. And even with The Mandalorian, it's very different here compared to Disneyland, because at Disneyland, he's just roaming the Black Spire Marketplace. He's roaming around, interacting with people. But the Mandalorian here, he gets, as soon as he makes an appearance, he gets swarmed by people. Swarmed. I mean, like, he can't walk around. And everyone just tries to take a photo with him. And if there's not a cast member kind of like directing the herd back away from him and like basically having to form a line for him, he just can't walk around, and guests would be all up on him, touching Grogu. It's crazy, man. I've seen a Mandalorian very few times around here, but every time I does, he's always swarmed with a huge line, and most of the time I've seen guests try to go and touch Grogu that's on his pouch, and guests cannot touch him. So all the time, you know, the Mandalorian would have to back away, and the cast member had to step in and be like, hey, please do not touch. Don't touch him. And, you know, that's just the environment here at Walt Disney World, because here at Disney World, it's like the main vacation destination for like all around the world. You know, everyone wants to come to Disney World. You know, we got the 4 parks, we got the Magic Kingdom, all of that. So this is guests from all around the world coming here. They're spending hundreds, thousands of dollars to be here. And their mentality is they have to be entitled to everything. Now, I don't say that totally like in a bad way. You know, of course, you pay this much money and you want to have the full experience that you pay for, so you try to like do everything, see everything, meet every character, you know, because you paid for that. However, the mentality that you bring with that is entitlement and selfishness. And it feels like, you know, because this one character did something special for this one guest, all of a sudden, because you saw that happen, you are entitled for that same exact experience. And the reality is, you know, the characters cannot do that for everyone. So we have limited characters, and we don't have any roaming droids because, you know, guests with that entitlement in their head, they see a roaming droid and are like, oh my gosh, let me go take a picture of it. And then other guests with the same mentality, they see the guest taking a picture with that droid and they're like, I want a picture too. And it just kind of domino effect. It's like a sheep hive mind here at Walt Disney World, where you see every guest having an experience, a guest seeing another guest having an experience that they are not having. They feel like they are entitled to have that same experience. And here at Walt Disney World, they try their best to push that for everyone. Like, they try to make sure that everyone that comes here has the same exact experience as everyone else, unless you pay a premium and then you have like tour guides and whatever and all that. But if you're just a normal paying guest here at Disney World, you should be able to have the same experience as everyone else, you know? And with like atmosphere characters like droids and other characters that just roam around, you don't really have that, because you know, you can't have an actor go up and do like a fun interaction with this one guest, because all of a sudden then you're gonna have like 50 families pushing their kids up to the front being like, I want that character to do the same thing for my kid. So that kind of kills the whole thematic atmosphere that Galaxy's Edge tries to build. But at Disneyland, that mentality, it still is somewhat there, but way less than Walt Disney World. And it's more manageable out there in California. So that's why you see California have all these better experiences, guest experiences, better characters, more roaming stuff, because that mentality is more manageable there. You know, there's still people that see that and try to do the same thing, but it's not an expectation over there when you're at Disneyland that you're gonna have the same exact experience as everyone else. When you're at Walt Disney World, that expectation, Disney tries to make sure that is met. So it makes it almost impossible to have these characters. And that, I think, is the biggest like problem that I'm facing on Will Galaxy's Edge. I'm right on this one. I'm gonna move over a little bit to try to get in the shade. Oh, much better. You know, with Galaxy's Edge here at Walt Disney World, you know, I try to be optimistic and be like, yeah, of course they're gonna bring the same experience over here to Walt Disney World. I mean, they brought the Mandalorian over, but at the same time I think about, okay, well, they also had Ahsoka, they had Sabine, they had R2-D2, they had Luke Skywalker, they had Fennec Shand, and Boba Fett. 6 characters that they had over at Disneyland, and probably still have, I don't know, their rotation, but 6 other characters that never showed up here at Walt Disney World so far. I'm hoping that changes. I'm hoping that does. But we only got the Mandalorian, and let's be real, we got the Mandalorian because it's the freaking Mandalorian. It's Grogu, one of the most popular and successful Star Wars characters in recent times. You know, definitely the most popular Disney era Star Wars character ever created. Of course, we were gonna have them brought over here too. But with the timeline changes, it really affects only the atmosphere, the thematic atmosphere of Disneyland, because you're gonna get those other characters and have those other experiences and be more original trilogy. But like I said, with the mindset not being the same here at Walt Disney World, are they even gonna bother spending all of that money to change the props if we can't have the same type of character experiences that they're gonna drive forward at Disneyland? You know, we have the Mandalorian, but are they gonna bring Ahsoka? I really hope so, because Ahsoka and Darth Vader are 2 of my top favorite Star Wars characters of all time. So I really want them to make this change here at Florida. But I struggle to really like tell myself, yeah, they're gonna do it, because it's like, are they really though? Because of A, B, and C that I just mentioned. Are they really? I really hope so, you know, but we'll see. I still believe that them doing it and rolling it out at Disneyland first is kind of a test run to see, does this bring more attendance to Galaxy's Edge? And I'm wondering if they're gonna have some days where, you know, there'll be limited character appearances. Will that still bring in attendance numbers to Galaxy's Edge? Because Disney, you know, the business side of Disney, not Walt Disney Imagineering, but the business side of the company, they only care about the analytics, right? The numbers, the spreadsheets, all of that. So what they're gonna hope for with the retheme over at Disneyland, once it happens, is does that drive up the attendance numbers for Galaxy's Edge? Does that bring in more people through the land than before when it was all the sequel trilogy? And if that does spike up attendance, even with some days where you don't really get to see Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. Just the simple fact of being the original trilogy era with, I don't know what other props they're gonna install there, but with it being the original trilogy era, will that still drive people to Disneyland? I'll tell you right now, if I had the ability to go to Disneyland when that change happens, I would be there day one. Absolutely. I just don't have that ability at all right now, and it sucks because I really want to go there and see that. But, you know, I'm locked here in Florida, which I'm not mad at. I love Florida. I love Walt Disney World. But, you know, will that happen? Will there be people who care enough to actually attend Galaxy's Edge and bring more of like a crowd there than before with this change? And if the higher ups at Disney, the executives, see those numbers on their spreadsheets increase, the attendance increase, sales for Disneyland tickets increase because of that, and they can narrow down to, yes, it's because of the timeline change, 100% they will bring it here to Florida. But if it does not change the attendance levels, it doesn't affect the guest, the guest feedback on Galaxy's Edge, if it doesn't improve the feedback for Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland at all, or just a little bit, I don't think they're going to commit to Walt Disney World. I think they're just going to keep it as is and just run with it. Or if they do decide to bring the characters in here, then they're just not going to care about the timeline. They're going to say, screw it, just leave all the First Order flags up, leave all the sequel trilogy stuff up, bring the characters, who cares? That might be an option. But the fact that the Walt Disney Imagineering has carefully constructed this original trilogy retheme with new props and even comic books to explain it all, I really think that, you know, they care a lot. And I do think they have a plan for it to happen in Florida. They're just waiting for the executives to be like, all right, this did numbers, bring it over to Florida too. Let's do that. Because if you guys remember, here in Florida, we're the only ones at Galaxy's Edge that had the Star Wars Hotel. I say had because it's closed now. They closed it because there's a lot of negative guest response for it. Mainly the price was too high and people were saying it just didn't feel like Star Wars for the most part. And once again, it was because the hotel was fully themed around the sequel era. Now, when they did close that, they did mention that it would be reimagined in the future. So there is a possibility that the Star Wars Hotel will come back different than it was before. So another part of me that is leaning towards in favor of, yes, they will change the timeline is, yeah, we have that Star Wars Hotel. The hotel is sitting right out of the outskirts of this theme park. It's just sitting there. We're the only ones that have that hotel. So are they going to not only retheme the original trilogy era for Galaxy's Edge here in Florida, but also are they going to reintroduce the Star Wars Hotel idea in the original trilogy era? You know? Because I'm sure that will drive a lot of sales for the hotel. This is a question for you if you're still watching. If you are, thank you. You know, I know I've rambled on and on and on and on about nerd stuff, but if you're still watching, this is a question for you. Would you pay the price of admission for a Star Wars hotel, full themed 2-night experience, fully themed in the Star Wars universe? Would you pay that price if it was in the era of the original trilogy, as in you'll get to see Darth Vader, have that interaction with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, those characters? Would you pay that price for those characters and those character experiences? Because in a way, the Star Wars Hotel was kind of the answer to what I just talked about with the whole mindset of the you know, the selfish mindset of guests of, you know, I have to experience everything that everyone else does as well, that kind of ruin the atmosphere, and where we can't have, you know, walk around characters and droids and stuff in the land. The answer to fixing that, in a way, was the Star Wars Hotel, because that is a separate paid premium experience that you get to have, where you get to live in the Star Wars universe for 2 days, where characters can just come up and talk to you and start a whole story with you specifically. But that was all themed to the sequel trilogy, and it was very expensive. Yeah, I have some friends that did get to experience that, and they loved it. I really wish I got to experience it, but it was that experience that was kind of promised for Galaxy's Edge that wasn't delivered. So yeah, man, now my head's just buzzing. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe they did announce it for Florida because they're also going to bring back the Star Wars Hotel. Or maybe I'm just coping. I'm coping so hard because I want this theme. I really think this is such a good idea for Galaxy's Edge to be the classic Star Wars, to have these classic characters. I really do think it's a great idea. Yeah, I think that might be it. Maybe this hotel might have something to do with it. I hope so. But I'll leave you guys with that thought, I guess. I still want to talk more about Star Wars because, you know, the perception of Star Wars here. Oh, the Mandalorian is about to come out. Oh, yeah, he's out. We'll go check him out. But real quick, the perception of Star Wars here at Walt Disney World has always been very unique. You know, we had Star Tours open with Hollywood Studios back in the 80s, and it's still open to this day. I hope it continues to stay open, even though it's not in the land. It doesn't matter because everything in the land is supposed to be canon. Star Tours, not canon. Now, before you lore heads attack me, I am a lore head as well. I know that Star Tours is canon inside of the Star Wars universe, and I know you can see the Star Speeder on the Millennium Falcon ride, but the events that we are experiencing in the Star Tours ride is definitely not canon. You can't tell me it is. You cannot tell me that we flew through the Battle of Crate as it was happening in The Last Jedi, that Star Tours was just there. You can't tell me that Star Tours was flying around with the Millennium Falcon through the junkyard of Jakku. You can't tell me that Star Tours was flying through the Battle of Hoth. No. The events that we ride in Star Tours is classic Star Wars fun, but it is not canon at all. And everything in Star Wars land here is canon. That's why it's not part of the land, and it never will be. And I really hope it never closes because of that. We can have a ride outside of Star Wars land that is a Star Wars ride that is just pure Star Wars fun, and then come into Star Wars land and all be immersed in the actual universe. You know, we can have those two. It'd be the best of both worlds. Just you want to have some classic Star Wars fun and then also be immersed. Boom, boom. Anyways, I kind of went on a tangent there. But you know, ever since Star Tours opened, and years, Disney's Hollywood Studios hosted Star Wars weekends. Ooh, I have a lot to say about Star Wars weekends. I miss it so much, but you know, that came and went. It ended, I believe, in 2015, the last Star Wars weekends, either 2015 or 2016. I think it was 15, and it never returned. There was some time where there was that Galactic Nights, I think, for a little bit. And then in Disneyland, they started doing Season of the Force, which I believe they still do. But we do not do here, which is crazy because this park used to host Star Wars weekends. And you're telling me that another event that is similar to Star Wars weekends is happening only at Disneyland, where they never had Star Wars weekends? Come on, man. Please bring Star Wars weekends over. Anyways, I have more thought about, you know, why that is, why we don't have, you know, the Star Wars events anymore, why Star Wars weekends ended. But to keep you guys watching my video, and you know, I have other things that I want to show in this video, I'll talk about it in just a little bit. So keep watching. let's go explore Batuu. I'll show you guys, you know, some of the areas that they're going to change over at Disneyland, what I think they will change, and what I think they will add and should add. And also, let's go check out The Mandalorian real quick. My goodness, guys, I was really just there for 24 minutes ranting like a crazy person about Star Wars. As people were just walking by me, I was just by myself with my camera, pointing at myself, just ranting like an insane person. Anyways, this is the lineup for The Mandalorian, which is something you don't really see at Disneyland because he's just able to walk around and come up to you to take photos with you. But here, since everyone has that entitlement ideology, I butchered that. I'm so sorry, guys. That entitlement idea in their heads. You know, everyone feels like they have to meet the Mandalorian. And so something like this forms where there's a line and he's only right there. And he doesn't go into the marketplace like he does in Disneyland. He just stays right there, takes photos, and once the line clears out, he leaves, which kind of sucks because I would love to see, you know, the Mandalorian just walking around the shops while I'm shopping for, you know, robes and creatures and stuff, you know, but that's only an experience you get at Disneyland. Yeah, it sucks that he's not able to roam around, but, you know, I am happy that Disney decided to bring him over and not keep him as a Disneyland exclusive character. I just wish that they also brought over Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, Ahsoka, all the other characters. I really love this market. And I don't know if you guys seen, but the creature shop recently has a new creature, another Lothcat. Now this Lothcat is specifically from the Ahsoka TV show, and it's Sabine's Lothcat. And it's huge and very realistic and also very expensive compared to the original Lothcat that was more themed to the Star Wars Rebels TV show. So yeah, over in Disneyland, this area of Galaxy's Edge will basically be completely unchanged because there's no like hard indication that this is like sequel trilogy era. It's just plain and simple like Star Wars themed. And in fact, you see a lot more like prequel era stuff and original trilogy stuff kind of mixed together than you see any other like sequel stuff specifically from the movies. So I'm thinking that, like I said, you know, Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, and Fennec Shand, all those characters will be roaming around this area, and this is kind of like the, yes, original trilogy, but also mainly the post-original trilogy era with, you know, the Mandalorian timeline, because the Mandalorian timeline does not take place during the original trilogy, but they're not going to get rid of him. So obviously, I think they're just going to keep him strictly in the marketplace area, and this will be, you know, the place where it's like, yeah, this is where you see the post original trilogy characters, and then obviously further down that way, then get to the sequel trilogy characters. But like I said, you really don't see much sequel trilogy stuff. I mean, even this right here, this is a replica of the little like car thing that Han Solo drove in the Han Solo movie, Solo: A Star Wars Story, which is set during the original trilogy era. Even though it's not from the original trilogy, it's set in that era. And there's nothing else that is directly like sequel trilogy other than, you know, the Porgs in there, but the Porgs is just a creature. You know, creatures don't have to be locked to a certain era. And even in the Toydarian toy shop, you see all these toys from all the eras, you know, original trilogy, sequel trilogy, prequel trilogy. What's up, Jar Jar? You know, you got them all here. It's all right here. You got the crate dragon from The Mandalorian. You got all the bounty hunters from the original trilogy. R2-D2, Darth Vader, C-3PO, and R2-D2. It's all original trilogy stuff. And of course, you got the Dejarik board game, original trilogy. Nothing that's specific to the sequel trilogy here, other than the toys that they sell. Even then, like, the only sequel trilogy toy that I see is the Porgs. Oh, and Kylo Ren. And of course, they used to have Vi Moradi and Rey, but I don't see that character anywhere. It's just Kylo Ren. Which can still make sense because, I mean, it's just a toy. You know, merchandise is merchandise. Now, as we move past this Ronso's Roasters, which of course has this speeder engine here, pod racer engine, of course from the prequel era. This in Disneyland is where hardcore original trilogy theming will be. Now down here you have Savi's Workshop, which is of course where you go to build your own custom lightsaber. There's some construction walls over here. I don't know what it's for. I'm kind of curious on what they're doing. It might just be some simple pavement stuff, but I mean, maybe they're adding something cool. I don't know. But this is where you go to build your lightsaber. And this is also like kind of the area you'll see Luke Skywalker kind of wander around through here. He'll come to Savi's. He'll talk to you about your lightsaber. He'll ask questions about it and the Jedi and the ways of the Force and whatnot. So this is where you'll see Luke Skywalker hanging around in Galaxy's Edge over at Disneyland. And then as you go further in to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, of course, we got the Millennium Falcon over there. That's where you'll see Han Solo and Chewbacca. Now, they did also announce that Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities will be getting some slight retheme. They're just going to be adding some more props from the prequel and original trilogy. And I'm not sure that, I can't see any right now, but I'm sure if there's any like sequel trilogy specific stuff in here, they're going to remove it and replace it with original trilogy stuff. So yeah, all this would be honestly pretty easy. I don't think they need to change much. I mean, this is all pretty much just prequel and original trilogy items all around. They might just add more things. I mean, you got like prequel era Jedi Buzz, so Shakti right there. You got, you know, the Kalish Warrior mask, General Grievous. You know, that's all prequels. You got all the original Stormtrooper helmets up there, and then you got a golden bust of Jar Jar right over here. You know, there's nothing that's specific to the sequel trilogy. This is all original and prequel stuff. So this already works in theme. And you guys can see, like, yeah, this is working already. You know, changing the timeline is easy. Even at Sarlacc, there's a whole comic book, a canon comic book, about how Han Solo himself brought that Sarlacc to Doc Ondar. So that could be a talking point with Han Solo when you go meet him over by the Millennium Falcon. Is like, hey, I heard you brought Doc that baby Sarlacc, and he probably will talk to you about it. It's awesome. All right, now we're over here by the iconic Millennium Falcon. As you guys can see right there, that is the rectangular radar dish that was introduced in The Force Awakens and all throughout the sequel trilogy. The Millennium Falcon in the entire sequel trilogy had that rectangular radar dish. But if they're going to change this area over at, you know, the West Coast, they have to change that radar dish, which I'm sure they will. So hopefully soon we'll see that circular dish over there in Disneyland. Now, I am curious about Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, because the storyline for Smuggler's Run definitely takes place between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, but I mean very loosely. the main mission definitely mentions the Resistance. It has the First Order. I'm sure it'll be very easy to kind of retheme it. I mean, we're already getting the Mandalorian and Grogu rethemed for Smuggler's Run, which doesn't take place in the sequel trilogy era. So already, before they announced the retheme of the timeline, you know, the timeline was kind of like whatever with the Millennium Falcon. Sorry, it sounded like it was about to take off. But already when they announced that the Mandalorian and Grogu was coming to the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, that kind of like threw the timeline out the window, because it's not in the sequel trilogy era. It's definitely not between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. And it's going to have a lot of original trilogy stuff in it, plus original trilogy planets and prequel trilogy planets. And it seems like they're going to lean the Millennium Falcon towards the original idea of having multiple missions, kind of like Star Tours, where there's multiple locations you can go. And now, I can't remember the exact specifics of it, but they did say that, you know, the engineer role will get to choose what planet you get to go to when they update it. So I'm wondering if they're just going to throw out the first mission completely, since it is tied to the sequel era. They're just going to throw that out and just leave it to the new missions that they add for the Mandalorian and Grogu retheme, and maybe further down the line they add more original trilogy focused missions to the Millennium Falcon, which is a high possibility. Now, they would need to change up the pre-show a little bit, because Hondo Ohnaka, by the way, a prequel era character from the Clone Wars and also Star Wars Rebels, so original trilogy era character as well. Hondo Ohnaka over here, he does mention in the pre-show, I believe, like Quaxium for the Resistance and something about the First Order. I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen the pre-show, but I believe he does mention that. So I mean, I'm sure you can easily get Jim Cummings to return and re-record some voice lines for a new pre-show that just mentions like, oh yeah, you know, Han let me borrow the Falcon and you guys are gonna fly it, blah blah blah. Because, you know, in the current storyline for the Falcon ride, Han Solo is dead. Han Solo died in The Force Awakens, so it's just Chewbacca, and Chewbacca is the one that let Hondo use the Falcon. So now that we're going back in time, we're bringing Han Solo back to life and having him right here with his ship finally. You know, what's the storyline there? Why are we flying the Falcon and not Han Solo and Chewbacca flying the Falcon? You know, why is that happening? So I'm sure they're gonna add something to the pre-show to kind of explain why Han Solo is letting all of us random people, or at least letting Hondo, an not trustworthy pirate, you know, the Jack Sparrow of the Star Wars universe, why is Han letting him take control of the Falcon, which then he of course lets us control? We'll see. I'm curious to see how they're gonna, you know, rework Smuggler's Run a bit. But finally we are getting Han Solo to be a main focus for the freaking Millennium Falcon here at Galaxy's Edge. Well, I say here at Galaxy's Edge, but the Disneyland version of Galaxy's Edge. Hopefully here in the near future, hopefully. Let's go ride Smuggler's Run, actually. Let's go ride. Okay, I'm gonna hold off on riding Smuggler's Run just for a little bit, because I realize I'm losing date time and I'm losing battery on my camera here. So I wanted to talk about the rest of Galaxy's Edge and the changes that Disneyland is gonna make. So over here we have the Oga's Cantina. Now, something I just remembered I didn't mention before when I was explaining all the changes that they're gonna make. Another big change is they will be adding Star Wars, like classic Star Wars music playing throughout the land. So you'll hear like classics like you know, Princess Leia's theme, the Force theme, the main title, the Imperial March, playing in different areas of the land. You know, classic, recognizable Star Wars music playing throughout Star Wars land. which is another complaint that many people had, is like, you know, you don't hear any classic Star Wars music at all. You just kind of hear, you know, the atmosphere, which is perfect for theming, yeah, because you can hear droids and ships and stuff, but like you don't hear any music. You know, kind of like when you think about visiting the Wizarding World of Harry Potter over at Universal, you know, it's very, very well themed and immersive, but also at the same time, the land music is the Harry Potter soundtrack. And it's still immersive and well themed, even with the music playing. Now, Disney never really had that, you know, a big immersive thing, but also have like the main music playing. It's only really at Star Tours that they have the main Star Wars music playing throughout, you know, the queue line. But now they will be introducing that to Galaxy's Edge over at Disneyland. And with Oga's Cantina going back in time a little bit, they will be having, you know, the classic Cantina band music playing inside the Cantina, just like in the original trilogy from the model nodes. So, you know, that you know, that would be played inside the Cantina as you're having a drink, which I think is a change that many people will welcome with open arms. Now, if we move down over here a little bit more, we'll past all the homes here in Black Spire. We get to what is now the First Order area. As you can see, the First Order banner right over here. And this area is the only area where you'll see Kylo Ren and the stormtroopers, you know, appear. You know, they come out from that ship right there, the TIE Echelon. They'll roam around the area. They'll ask about, you know, where's the Resistance base, blah, blah, blah. You know, are you a Resistance spy? All that good stuff. But with the timeline changing, this area will be completely affected. I can imagine that the First Order banners will obviously come down and be replaced with Imperial banners. Now, I did mention this TIE fighter ship. See, right now, with this land still being in the sequel era, this TIE ship does not match the TIE ships from the First Order fleet, because that color scheme is black and like white and gray color scheme, mostly just hard black and red. This TIE is original trilogy colored. Now, they never really explained it before, but with the blog post that they made with the announcement of them going back in time at Disneyland, they did say that this is an antique ship, which is kind of new information. A lot of people are saying it's a retcon, but I really do think it was intentional from the very beginning, because this TIE ship was never colored with the First Order colors. This is an original ship. It's never been seen in any of the Star Wars movies or video games or shows. It's original for Galaxy's Edge, but it's colored to be an Imperial ship, so it fully works with the retheme. Here's the First Order Stormtroopers, by the way. I will say, when they do change the timeline, and I hope they do it here for Florida too, I'm going to miss these guys so much, because they're going to go bye-bye. They will not be in the land no more, but we're still going to have Stormtroopers, just the original classic Imperial Stormtroopers, and these new First Order ones will go away, unfortunately. So, if they ever do announce a change, please make sure you get all your interactions and your photos and your videos with these First Order Stormtroopers while you still can in Galaxy's Edge. But anyway, back here, they did say that this will be all Imperial, and Darth Vader and the Imperial Stormtroopers will come out of that ship and start roaming around just like Kylo Ren does. It's just, you know, it's same experience. It's just, instead of Kylo Ren, it's Darth Vader. You know, like everyone's favorite Darth Vader and the original classic Stormtroopers in this area. And like I said, obviously they're not going to keep that First Order banner. That will be replaced with the Imperial banner. And another major change is with the First Order supply shop here. That's getting a name change. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I probably have it on screen now. But the storyline will also completely change to reflect something with the prequel era, which I'm very happy about. This shop will soon be owned in Disneyland, soon be owned by two clone troopers that fought in the Clone Wars. And after the Clone Wars, one of them split off to join the Rebellion and fight for the Rebellion, and the other one fought for the Empire. But now that, you know, after some fighting and the Empire kind of like got rid of clone troopers and they aged to be old and not fit for service anymore, they both kind of like made up and became brothers again, basically. You know, I'm kind of simplifying the storyline, but you know, they made up, they're not enemies anymore, and they both own this shop where they sell both Rebellion and Imperial merchandise. So this is where you can go to get like some you know, military, quote unquote military inspired merchandise for Star Wars, which is just, you know, stormtrooper stuff, rebel soldier stuff, you know, all that good stuff. But as you can see in here right now, you see like that First Order stormtrooper mannequin. You got the First Order banners and helmets, and this First Order flag, which I have, which is really cool. And all the sequel trilogy stuff. You even got the freaking gold stormtrooper helmet from Resistance, which is a deep cut. I love that. You got all First Order themed, but soon this will be all classic trilogy themed, which already they sell a few merchandise of inside. Yeah, like right here they have this little section that is like Imperial themed and Darth Vader themed. You see Join the Empire shirt, and you Join the Empire jacket, and you got Enlist Today and all this Darth Vader stuff. You got the Enlist Join the Empire right there, which is all a Galaxy's Edge exclusive merchandise. And I wonder, is this the merchandise that they will have at Disneyland when they change the timeline? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure they already started rolling out the merchandise that they designed specifically for the re-theme, which I'm hoping means that they will definitely bring it to Florida, since we have the merchandise for, you know, the Imperial theme instead of the First Order theme. So hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully that's a good sign of what things are gonna be looking like in the future. But yeah, like I said earlier, guys, that mentality of I have to experience everything that everyone else does. Look at the crowd. The stormtroopers can't really walk around anymore because now it's just kind of a line, and everyone's taking one at a time taking photos with the stormtroopers. Whereas before, they don't stop for photos, they just walk around. But now they're out here stopping for photos. And I got this whole crowd here waiting, which kind of sucks. But we'll see how they deal with that in the future. This might be a controversial opinion, but I know a lot of people don't like blue or green milk. A lot of people think it's disgusting and they can't stand it, which shows because like there's literally not a single soul in line. But I love blue milk. I really think it's like absolutely delicious. Call me crazy, I know. I absolutely love blue milk. I like green milk too, but I think blue milk is the best. I really like it. I know, I'm crazy, I'm a madman, but I absolutely adore it. I know it's not for everyone, it's an acquired taste. You know, a lot of people expect it to be like milky, because you know, milk is in the name, but it's not milk at all. Think of it like a special type of vegan slushy in a way. I don't know, I think it's really good, but a lot of people disagree. I really love the skyline here at Batuu. It's just so incredible. Seeing all those spires in the background, amazing. Okay, my battery's getting dangerously low. I still have a lot more to talk about, but I'm gonna take a little break, go in the single rider line for Smuggler's Run, gather my thoughts once again, and I'll be back. Let's go fly the Falcon.
You will be intercepting a First Order train shipment of coaxium. Gunners! I was just about to say that. Pilot on the right. Pull back on the stick to fly up. And push forward to fly down. Come. Papa. Those heavy dice are protecting the train. Take them out. They've locked onto us. Take evasive action. Need to defend ourselves. Open fire.
All right, just got off of my my visit to the planet Corellia. You know, I was able to get a couple of coaxium for the Resistance. I wasn't able to get the coaxium for Hondo, but you know, that was kind of a bonus thing. Still got it paid out pretty good. You know? We definitely damaged the Falcon a bit, but she still looks good. Still looks good. It's a fun ride. I can see why, you know, it falls flat for a lot of people. It definitely falls flat for me. It's not my favorite Star Wars ride here. Out of the 3 Star Wars ride in this park, I rank it bottom. Just because Rise of the Resistance is just unmatched, and I like Star Tours a lot more than Smuggler's Run. But like I said, with the addition of the Mandalorian and Grogu missions to Smuggler's Run, hopefully that changes that ride completely. And I never mentioned it before, but the Mandalorian and Grogu changes to Smuggler's Run was confirmed to happen at here in Florida as well. I think in May 22nd is when they're gonna add it. Yeah, but that's happening here in Florida. So already we have a little bit of a timeline shift. We just need that official announcement that they're doing the timeline shift here in Florida. But like I said, I think it's because of the hotel. And I'm pointing right here because that's where you used to enter to get into your pod that takes you out into space into the Halcyon, which is just a truck that drove you across the road. But I'm hoping that we get that timeline shift here as well. I really, really want it. All right, and the final thing I wanted to mention in regards to the whole thematic change for Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge is the droid shop. Much of it will still be the same. It's just story-wise, it's going to be owned by a earlier generation of the Mubo family than the current one that is in the sequel trilogy, which to the average guest means absolutely nothing. No changes on that front. You'll still be able to make BB units, but you're going to see, I think they said they're going to add a like early prototype of the BB unit inside the shop. Hold on, let me go inside. I'll show you guys what they're talking about. Yeah, so like right in here, there you can see the R2 unit and the BB unit right there. Of course, the BB units are main sequel trilogy things. So I'm just thinking that they're gonna take that BB unit out at Disneyland and replace it with like an early model, like prototype of a BB unit that would have been around in the original trilogy era, just to, you know, add to that thematic change. And I think that is the only thing that they will be changing inside the droid shop, because otherwise everything, I mean, droids are across all eras of Star Wars, and over there there's the K2 droid, which is from the original trilogy. You know, you got that droid right there, the Doctor droid, also original trilogy. Like, the only sequel trilogy specific droid is the BB unit, which, by the way, fun fact, if you guys never knew this, the reason the R2 is orange and the BB is blue is because that's a reverse color scheme of R2-D2 and BB-8, where normally BB-8 is orange and R2 is blue. Well, in here, the R2 unit is orange and the BB unit is blue. So it's a fun little thing. That would be something, a nice little Easter egg that would be gone if they did change that BB unit and, you know, put in like a whatever prototype, early prototype they were talking about in the blog post in there. Well, we'll see. But for now, you know, if you never knew about that Easter egg, there you go. So yeah, earlier in the video I did mention that I wanted to talk more about Star Wars weekends, Galactic Nights, and like the perception of Star Wars at Disney parks right now. What I mean by that, I thought that was going to be quiet. It is definitely not. I'm gonna try to find somewhere quiet to talk about it. Real quick, if you didn't know, this is the landing site for the pod that DJ Rex came in and crashed down on Batuu. I'm pretty sure that was the storyline for this. But yeah, this is how DJ Rex got onto Batuu from Star Tours. Crashed in right here. All right, let me try to finish up my thoughts for the video right now. So yeah, back in the day, from like the early 2000s to about 2015, every year, Disney's Hollywood Studios hosted Star Wars weekends. I ran for like 4 to 5 weekends in like June, like April to June-ish area of the year. And it was the greatest thing on this planet. I may be exaggerating a bit, but you know, I'm a major Star Wars fan, and that event really like changed my life. I'm not even joking. You know, to my sister who might be watching this, and to my brother-in-law, thank you guys so much for the bottom of my heart for taking me to that event pretty much every year from 2010 to 2015. That event truly was, it changed my life. It grew my love of Star Wars. I was already a Star Wars fan beforehand of attending Star Wars weekends, but attending that event really reinforced in me that Star Wars was more than just this silly little thing that I liked at home. These silly little movies. It was a cultural phenomenon, and I really saw that in Star Wars weekends with all the celebrities and all the guests that came in costume, and it was such a huge event that my young brain kind of made the connection like, oh crap, Star Wars is like legit. And it even inspired my sister and my brother-in-law to actually like watch Star Wars from that event, which I'm very grateful for. I mean, I don't think they turn out to be actual Star Wars fans. I'm sure they like Star Wars casually, but they're not fans like me that's like hardcore Star Wars fan. But those movies, or that event inspired them to like watch the movies, which like meant a lot to me. It meant a lot that, you know, they watched those movies because they went to this event with me and experienced all those panels, experienced all those celebrities that hosted those panels, like Anthony Daniels, James Arnold Taylor, Ashley Eckstein. You know, they never watched the animated stuff. I never expected them to. It would be great if they did, but they never did. But they knew those actors because they were there every year. They hosted the events every year. They hosted so many panels talking about the animated shows, talking about the movies. It was such a special experience that we will never have again. And that's why I'm so grateful for having to experience that in my life. Now, I know Disney will never do it again because that was included in your park admission. Just like, you know, Fast Pass used to be free, and now it's Lightning Lane and Genie Plus, whatever the crap they're doing now that you have to pay a premium for. Fast Pass used to be a free system. Star Wars Weekends used to be a free event. Well, you know, with included in your park admission event. You got to meet those celebrities for free. You didn't have to pay an extra price to meet celebrities. You just had to be there early to get in line to be able to get a ticket to be able to meet them, which I never really got to do except for like twice maybe when I started going with my friends from school. Like, that was all free. You got to meet freaking celebrities and get autographs for free at Disney. You just had to pay the price of a park ticket to get here. They're never doing that again. You know, they tried something. I think it was called Galactic Nights here at Hollywood Studios. It was a nighttime separate ticket event. And I think they did it maybe once or twice sometime after Star Wars Weekends ended, and they haven't done it again. And, you know, that worries me because, you know, we used to have such an amazing Star Wars event yearly, and then it went away, and it kind of came back with like a limited time. It was a special, you know, separate ticket event. I don't think it did well. That's why it never came back. And then since then, we got nothing. No special like Star Wars event here at Hollywood Studios. We just had the freaking launch bay, which was cool for like the first year, and then it just sucked afterwards. It was kind of useless. It was used to promote like the first 2 of the sequel trilogy movies, and then they just gave up promoting after that. They just put up banners outside of the launch bay. But we just had that. We just had launch bay, we had Star Tours, and we had Galaxy's Edge open. And then it's almost like Disney said, all right, that's it. That's all you get. We gave you a whole Star Wars land. You got the launch bay, you got Star Tours. We don't need to do any Star Wars events. Like, we're not doing it. You got more than enough Star Wars for you. You know, and for a while that was fine because Galaxy's Edge was this new cool thing. But like I said, it fell flat for a lot of people, me included. I love Galaxy's Edge, but the promise that it had, it didn't really deliver on it. You know, Smuggler's Run, the ride kind of falls flat a bit. Rise of the Resistance is amazing if you can get on it and have all the animatronics work like it did today. But besides that, that's all you get here. And then now we lost Star Wars Launch Bay, which is fine, honestly, because it overstayed its welcome. But we lost Star Wars Launch Bay, we lost Star Wars Weekends, and we never got the Season of the Force. Well, Season of the Force I'm gonna get to, but we never got Galactic Nights. And I can tell you right now, Disney, the reason why Galactic Nights failed and it didn't sell enough that you wanted, you know, the amount of tickets that you wanted, is because it used to be free. We had Star Wars Weekends for free, and then you try to get us to pay for it. And you know, that was a time where people weren't really accepting of that. That's why Lightning Lane and Genie Plus and all that isn't really, you know, it's fine now because we kind of forced into it, and guests coming from around the world don't care. They don't know that it used to be free. But for like the average local, you know, we're not paying for Genie Plus or Lightning Lane. Why would you? Because if you used to come here to the parks back in the day, you knew that you got fast passes for free. Why would you pay for that now? You know, it's the same idea with Galactic Nights. Like, we used to have Star Wars Weekends for free. Why would we pay for it now? That's why I kind of failed here. And for Disneyland, the Season of the Force, it's kind of like Star Wars Weekends in a way, just, you know, not with the celebrities and all those actors from the TV shows and the movies coming in. But it has all the characters that you normally don't see, special like merchandise and all the special stuff that Star Wars Weekends had as well, but just not celebrities and no panels. They have that at Disneyland. It's called Season of the Force, and to my knowledge, it's still ongoing. I can't remember if they did one in 2025, but I know previous years they definitely did do Season of the Force. Hi. So, yeah, my camera died because I just ramble on. And yeah, my phone died. So now I'm in my car in the parking lot of Disney's Hollywood Studios, which I was going to leave anyway because it's starting cold and I did not have a jacket. I did not come prepared for this video at all, as you can tell. But believe it or not, I still have more to say. What I was saying, Season of the Force, you know, happens at Disneyland because they never had a Star Wars event like Star Wars Weekends before. But I believe that Season of the Force is included in the admission of Disneyland, just like Star Wars Weekends used to be. I could be very wrong about that. I'm not a local of Disneyland. I've only been there once, 10 years ago. I gotta go back. But I don't believe it's a separate ticket event. There might be like a section after hours that might be a separate ticket. I don't really know. But they do Season of the Force over there at Disneyland. And they don't do that here at Hollywood Studios at all. which makes me like wonder, do they just give up on Star Wars overall in the company? Like, we're talking broad Star Wars now, the way Disney has handled Star Wars. Obviously, they went full force on the sequel trilogy and the spin-off movies since 2015, which ironically was the last year of Star Wars Weekends. They invested so much into Star Wars. They brought out Episode 7 in 2015, Rogue One in 2016, The Last Jedi in 2017, Solo, A Star Wars Story in 2018, and then The Rise of Skywalker in 2019. And then right after The Rise of Skywalker, or during The Rise of Skywalker, they had The Mandalorian roll out a season or two. And then after that, we had non-stop streaming shows of The Mandalorian, 3 seasons of that, the Ahsoka show. We had the final season of Clone Wars. We had, we had Star Wars Rebels and some point during the rollout of all those movies year after year. And then we had The Bad Batch. We had 3 seasons of The Bad Batch. We had Skeleton Crew, The Acolytes, The Book of Boba Fett. We had so much Star Wars content. It was just back to back to back to back Star Wars. And I think their mentality was that they were just investing in all this other Star Wars stuff. They didn't need these special Star Wars events at the parks. And I don't think they realize how like important that is to keep the Star Wars fandom alive and thriving. Now, it was a different time back during Star Wars Weekends times. Once again, you know, I mentioned that already. But also, it was a different time for Star Wars because there wasn't any new movies. We just had the Clone Wars TV show that was an ongoing thing. And then near the end of it, we just got Star Wars Rebels as a new thing. But the movies were basically done. And of course, Disney bought Star Wars sometime in 2012, I believe. And then they announced that they were making new movies, which was exciting. But for the most part, I mentioned before, I love all Star Wars movies. I love all Star Wars shows. But for the general fan base, I call the fandom menace, Star Wars Episode 7 was received very well when it was released, but over time, people have switched up on that movie. And not a lot of people like it for some reason. I love it, but a lot of people say it's a rehash of A New Hope. And then The Last Jedi came out. Okay, before we dive into The Last Jedi, I skipped over Rogue One. In 2016, Rogue One came out. People loved it. It was amazing. You know, it was set during the original trilogy. It led up to A New Hope. It had Darth Vader. It was awesome. People loved it. We were on a roll. We got good Star Wars 7. We got a really good spin-off movie. Things were in high gear. 2018. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep getting my years mixed up. 2017 came around. The Last Jedi, Episode 8. People hated that movie. Hated it. And that's where I think the downfall began for Disney, Star Wars, and the fans versus Disney. It was The Last Jedi. People hated that movie. I'm not going to dive in why, but they hated it. I loved it. I know, you can attack me in the comments, but I liked it. And then The Last Jedi was followed up the next year with the Han Solo movie, starring someone who wasn't Harrison Ford. It was Alden Ehrenreich. People were kind of meh about it. They actually went to go see it. But unfortunately, with how much people hated The Last Jedi, people didn't really show up for Solo, A Star Wars Story. And it was kind of a box office bomb. It was the first box office bomb of the Disney Star Wars era. Disney lost money on the Han Solo movie. I thought the Han Solo movie was spectacular. People were kind of meh about it. People were still salty about The Last Jedi, like really bad salty. And then after Solo, we got the end of the sequel trilogy, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, when that first came out, I remember there was people that were saying it was good. There was people that was like, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this not bad. But over time, and also around the release, there was a lot of people, and over time now, majority of people hated The Rise of Skywalker. Hated it more than The Last Jedi. People saying it's the worst Star Wars movie ever made. I really like it. But hey, majority of the Star Wars fan base hated The Rise of Skywalker. So you can see where the problem is here. Out of 2015 and 2019, one Star Wars movie every year, we only got one that people liked when it came out and then switched up on it. Got another one that people like and still like to this day, which is good. Got one that people hate and still hate. Got another one that people are meh about. And then we got another one that people hate and still hate to this day. Yeah, it's not looking good. And then we had The Mandalorian, which brought some life back into the franchise. You know, people were excited about Star Wars again. The Mandalorian was amazing, was a success. We were running with that until we got to the Book of Boba Fett. People did not like the Book of Boba Fett. And it retroactively kind of ruined The Mandalorian. And then we got season 3 of The Mandalorian. People hated that season. And now, you know, we didn't get in Mandalorian until now we have the Mandalorian Grogu movie, the first Star Wars movie since The Rise of Skywalker. But people are not looking forward to the Mandalorian Grogu because of the bad taste that season 3 left in most people's mouths. And also the last Star Wars movie that came out, people say was garbage. So there's not much excitement, even though The Mandalorian did bring life back into the franchise after it was like bombarded with hatred. You know, there was a shared love with The Mandalorian until it got ruined by the Book of Boba Fett and season 3 of The Mandalorian. So now The Mandalorian's kind of like this, yeah, people like it, but people are kind of not trusty of it right now. And then we got, you know, The Acolyte, which I love The Acolyte, but people hated that. And then we got Skeleton Crew, which kind of suffered the same fate of Solo: A Star Wars Story, where not many people watched it, but the people who did really liked it. Some people said it was okay, but most people really liked it. I really heard no bad reviews about Skeleton Crew. The only bad reviews of Skeleton Crew I saw were people that didn't even see it. Skeleton Crew is really good, by the way. You should go see it. But it kind of suffered the same fate as Solo: A Star Wars Story. And we got The Bad Batch, which kind of swept under the rug because it's animated. You know, the animated stuff really gets swept under the rug by the casual fan base. But, yeah. All of this, by the way, is casual Star Wars fans. And there's some hardcore Star Wars fans that believe all the same stuff, but I loved all of it. I'm not going to get into that debate. But, you know, that was the perception with Disney Star Wars. And this is where we are now. It's kind of like back-to-back, you know, people hating this and that and this and that. So I think combine that with Galaxy's Edge, which was all sequel trilogy era themed. And the sequel trilogy, for the most part, is hated by the fan base. Yeah, you can see the pivot back towards original trilogy and classic Star Wars making sense now to Disney. But I think the company is kind of in this state of, we don't know if we're trusting this, because they really put all their chips in the basket and lost a lot of chips. You know, they lost a lot. They gambled and they lost a lot. So I think they're kind of being cautious right now with what they're going to do with Star Wars moving forward, which is why I said I think Disneyland's change to the timeline is a test to see if they will commit to rolling it out here in Florida. And plus the hotel, with that being a failure for the most part back then, I think they're going to, if they see the numbers improve in Disneyland, I think they're going to commit to the changes in the hotel and then bring the timeline switch here to Florida with the reopening of the Star Cruiser being the original trilogy and having classic characters, Han, Luke, Leia, Han Solo. I said Han Solo already. Han, Luke, Leia, Darth Vader, all that. I think we're going to get a Star Wars hotel where you can meet and greet all those characters. They're going to interact with you, and R2-D2 is going to be around, and C-3PO. It's going to be classic Star Wars. That's going to be the hotel. I promise you that. But I think that's where we are in the state of Star Wars. Like I said, we'll never get Star Wars weekends ever again. I'm hoping if things go in the right direction, if The Mandalorian and Grogu is a success, if the future Star Wars movies are successes, if the changes to Galaxy's Edge is a success, and we see this big resurgence in Star Wars, and we have Disney trust the brand again with Star Wars, they can see Star Wars as this mighty brand again that won't fail, we're going to get some good stuff for Star Wars moving forward. We recently got Kathleen Kennedy out as the president of Lucasfilm, and we now have Dave Filoni, who was the showrunner for the animated Star Wars stuff, the Clone Wars. He was the guy behind the Clone Wars. And we have, what's her name? Lynn Brennan? I'm sorry if I butchered that, but we got 2 new presidents of Lucasfilm running the company now. And we seem to be in a period of recovery for the Star Wars brand. And hopefully this recovery makes it through, and we see people love Star Wars again. I always loved it, always will. But, you know, the casual fan base that hated on all this stuff, maybe, hopefully, over the next few years, we'll see them love Star Wars again, and Star Wars becomes this big, major thing again. We will see some really good stuff in the parks. And now, leading to my final, yes, finally, right? My final note to say in this video. Earlier, I mentioned the Jedi Training Academy outside of Star Tours and how I had some ideas of what they could do with that. I didn't want to leave you guys hanging at the end of this video. Be like, he never mentioned that. The Jedi Academy. Let's look at this map of Galaxy's Edge, or, you know, the map of Hollywood Studios on Google Maps. Right over here and right over here, there are spaces for expansion. Now, if you didn't know, Galaxy's Edge was supposed to open with 3 rides. It has 2. Well, here in Florida, it opened with just 1. And then Rise of the Resistance opened later. But there was supposed to be a 3rd attraction where you ride on the back of this big creature, and it kind of takes you around the land. Now, we could still get that attraction, but I propose somewhere in this area, they kind of rework it a bit, build a ruined Jedi temple area, have a whole Jedi area, and make an indoor stage show where you can bring in characters from across all eras of the timeline, because it's Jedi and the Force, and you can explain it like that. Bring in characters from all eras of the timeline, bring in Proxy from The Force Unleashed, because he can shapeshift into Star Wars characters. If you're really worried about the timeline, Proxy can shapeshift into Star Wars characters. Bring that droid in, have him shift into different characters from across the timeline, so we can have Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, Darth Maul, you know, across all eras. Have this Jedi lightsaber battle stage show that also is kind of a Jedi Training Academy of sorts. Because I think Galaxy's Edge would benefit with a stage show. Imagine that, a Jedi stage show. That would be awesome. That's kind of my armchair Imagineering. Now, I know that Imagineering does not take outside things from, you know, regular guests. But I hope that they have that in their minds. I hope they have that in their cards. They're like, maybe Galaxy's Edge needs a stage show or something. But if not in that area, then over in this other area right here, there's, look at that, massive plot for expansion. You can rework all the backstage infrastructure around that, and you have a huge spot to expand. Now, I propose a new Star Wars original trilogy themed dark ride. Since Rise of the Resistance cannot be changed over to the original trilogy, we need a dark ride similar to Rise of the Resistance, but not the same, you know, something a little different, but still amazing, themed after the original trilogy, where we see all those classic characters. Have it in that area, make a new area of Galaxy's Edge, some new shops, some new stuff over there. Or heck, you know what? Even better. Look at that spot. That is huge. Put in a new dark ride, put that stage show over there as well, and then bring us that canceled creature ride through in this area over here. And boom, 3 brand new attractions in Galaxy's Edge, making the total offerings in Galaxy's Edge 2 being 4 rides and 1 stage show. So 5 attractions total if you're not counting Savi's Workshop. And boom, massive Star Wars land, original trilogy characters, prequel trilogy characters here and there, sequel trilogy, it's all here. 5 attractions, all in one Star Wars land. That's my idea for a perfect Star Wars land at Galaxy's Edge. And I hope that Walt Disney Imagineering brings that. But we can't have that until Disney trusts in Star Wars again. So, we'll see what the future holds for Galaxy's Edge. Are you excited for Galaxy's Edge changing their timeline? And do you want to see it happen here in Florida too? Let me know down in the comments. If you even made it this far in the video, I know it's a very long video and I was just talk about Star Wars. But if you made it this far into the video, thank you. I'm sorry it was so long, but thank you. And let me know if you did by commenting. Let's see, what are you going to comment? Comment Ahsoka Tano. Yeah, comment Ahsoka Tano to let me know that you made it to the end of the video. So, with that being said, the sun's coming down. I talked for a long time. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the parks and in Galaxy's Edge.